The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 200 different alien species. Each one had traveled across the stars to attend this emergency meeting. The room buzzed with confused whispers and worried conversations. Something unusual had happened, something that had never occurred in the 3,000 years since the council was formed. Ambassador Velthor stood at the center of the chamber. His body was made of living crystal that reflected the light in rainbow patterns. He was a Kralix, one of the oldest species in the council, and his people were known for their calm and logical thinking. But today his crystalline form looked clouded and dark. He was worried, and everyone could see it. "The humans have refused our offer," Velthor announced to the assembled aliens. His voice carried across the vast chamber, and immediate silence fell. "They will not join the Galactic Council. They will not negotiate with us. They have rejected everything we proposed." The chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens of every shape and size began talking at once. Some were angry. Others were confused. A few even laughed, thinking this must be some kind of joke. No species had ever refused the council before. It simply did not happen. Counselor Zephyra, a being made of pure energy contained in a special diplomatic shell, flickered rapidly. This was a sign of extreme confusion among her people. "Please explain this more clearly," she said. "The humans rejected our standard integration package? The one that includes advanced technology and access to trade routes across the entire galaxy?" "They rejected everything," Velthor repeated. "Their ship captain, a man named John Mitchell, gave us a very short message. He said they are not interested in our membership. They do not want our technology. They do not want our trade agreements. He said that Earth will make its own path forward." More shouting filled the chamber. This was impossible to understand. The humans were barely capable of faster-than-light travel. They only had 5 small colonies on other worlds. Their technology was primitive compared to what the Council possessed. They should have been begging to join, not refusing. High Arbiter Quinlos raised one of his many limbs to signal for quiet. His species had founded the Council thousands of years ago, and he commanded great respect. "Perhaps these humans do not understand their situation," he said calmly. "We will establish a blockade around their space. When they cannot trade with anyone, when their economy begins to fail, they will change their minds. No species can survive alone. They will learn this lesson soon enough." The council members nodded in agreement. This made sense to them. They had used blockades before to convince difficult species to cooperate. It always worked. Within a few weeks, the isolated species would realize they had no choice and would accept the council's terms. But Velthor felt something strange as he listened to the others. It was a feeling he had not experienced in centuries. He felt doubt. Far away, on the bridge of the human starship Relentless, Captain John Mitchell stood with his arms crossed over his chest. He was watching the Council's fleet move into position on his view screen. Dozens of alien warships were forming a barrier around human space, blocking any ships from entering or leaving. 32 capital ships, sir," reported Commander Lisa Hayes, his second-in-command. She was studying the tactical display with a calm expression. "They are setting up a perimeter around all of our colonies." "Let them," John said simply. His voice was steady and showed no fear. "They think we need them. It is time to show them they are wrong." Lieutenant Ben Carter looked up from his communication station. "Sir, they are broadcasting a message on all frequencies. They are offering us one more chance to negotiate and join the council." John smiled, but there was no warmth in his expression. "Tell them the same thing we said before. We said no the first time. We meant it." The bridge crew worked quietly, following their captain's orders. They all knew what was happening. The Galactic Council thought they could force humanity to obey through economic pressure. They believed that without access to galactic trade, humanity would collapse and beg to join on any terms offered. What the Council did not understand was something fundamental about human nature. Humanity had spent its entire existence learning to survive alone. They had climbed from living in caves to traveling between stars without any help from aliens. They had built their civilization through determination and creativity, when everything said they should have destroyed themselves many times over. Humans had faced ice ages that should have killed them. They had survived plagues that wiped out most of their population. They had fought wars that devastated their world, and every single time they had adapted, survived, and grown stronger. The Council was about to learn an important lesson. Humans did not respond well to threats. They did not surrender when someone tried to bully them. And they certainly did not bargain when someone backed them into a corner. On Earth, in the government headquarters, President Alan Williams met with his top advisors. They discussed the situation carefully. The Council's blockade would make things difficult, but not impossible. Humanity had prepared for this possibility. We knew they might react this way, the President said to his military chiefs. We have been preparing for independence since we first made contact with the Council. Our colonies are self-sufficient. Our technology is our own. We do not need their trade routes. Admiral Helen Price nodded in agreement. Our intelligence suggests the Council has never faced real resistance before. Every species they encountered eventually joined them, usually within weeks of a blockade. They expect us to follow the same pattern. Then they will be disappointed, President Williams said firmly. We did not come this far to kneel before the first empire we met in space. If they want to isolate us, we will show them that isolation is something humans know very well. Back on the relentless John Mitchell looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was confident in their power. They believed their blockade would break human resistance quickly and easily. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy an old lesson, one that Earth had taught to countless would-be conquerors throughout history. You can threaten humans. You can try to force them, but you cannot make them surrender. And when you try, you often find that you have made a terrible mistake. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council established their blockade around human space. Ambassador Velthor stood before an emergency council session, and his crystalline form looked darker than ever before. He was about to deliver news that no one wanted to hear. The blockade is not working, he announced to the shocked assembly. The humans are not suffering. In fact, they appear to be doing better than before. Confused murmurs filled the chamber. This made no sense. The blockade should have crippled the human economy within weeks. Without access to galactic trade, they should be desperate by now. But the reports Velthor was showing told a very different story. The holographic displays showed data that seemed impossible. Human colonies were not just surviving. They were growing larger. New ships appeared in their fleet every week. Their industrial production had increased by 40% since the blockade began. Most confusing of all, they had developed new technologies that the Council had never seen before. This violates every economic model we have. Councillor Zephyra protested, her energy form flickering rapidly. No species can advance without the Council's technology-sharing programs. It should be mathematically impossible for them to improve like this. High Arbiter Quinlaw studied the reports with growing concern. His confidence from 3 months ago was gone. What are our intelligence teams telling us? How are the humans doing this? Velthor's form grew even darker. That is the problem, High Arbiter. Our intelligence teams say we made a fundamental error when we first assessed humanity. He brought up historical data about human development. The numbers appeared on displays around the chamber. Look at their development curve compared to other species. Most species discover fire, then agriculture, then basic tools over hundreds of thousands of years. Humans did all of this in only 50,000 years. Most species take 10,000 years to go from agriculture to industrial revolution. Humans took 5,000. From industrial revolution to space travel, most species need 2,000 years. Humans did it in 200 years. The chamber fell silent as the aliens processed this information. They were beginning to understand something frightening. They are not a slow-developing species that needs our guidance. Velthor continued. They are the fastest developing species we have ever encountered. They were already advancing rapidly when we found them. We simply assumed they would follow the normal pattern that every other species follows. On the human colony world called New Boston, Chief Engineer Paul Dixon watched as a newly constructed shipyard came online. Beside him stood Director Kate Morrison, who was reviewing production schedules on her datapad. Both of them were smiling. The Council thought cutting us off from their trade would hurt us, Kate said. They did not realize that most of humanity's greatest innovations came from isolation and necessity. When we have no one to help us, we become most creative. Paul nodded, watching another warship take shape in the construction bay. The Council species have been sharing technology for so long that they forgot how to create new things themselves. They just copy and trade what already exists. We never had that luxury. Every breakthrough we ever made came because we had no choice but to figure it out on our own. How long until the new quantum drive engines are ready? Kate asked. Another month, Paul replied. Then we will be twice as fast as anything the Council has. Let them try to blockade us when we can just fly around them faster than they can follow. Back in Council space, emergency meetings were happening every single day. The blockade was supposed to bring humans to their knees within weeks. Instead, it had been 3 months and the Council was spending enormous resources just to keep their fleet in position. The costs were adding up and some Council members were starting to complain, but there was a bigger problem developing. Other species across the galaxy were watching what was happening. These were species that had joined the Council because they believed there was no alternative. They had accepted unfavorable trade terms and given up some of their freedom because they thought resistance was impossible. Now those species were watching humanity thrive under conditions that should have destroyed them. They were starting to ask dangerous questions. If humans could resist the Council successfully, why could they not do the same? Ambassador Velthor received a report that made his crystalline heart sink. 7 species had formally requested to renegotiate their Council membership terms. 12 more had sent unofficial inquiries asking about the possibility of independence. The human rebellion was inspiring others, and the carefully maintained order of the Galactic Council was beginning to fall apart. We need to end this situation quickly, Velthor told High Arbiter Quinlos in a private meeting. Every day we maintain this blockade and fail to break the humans, we look weaker. Every day that humans continue to thrive, more species begin to question our authority. Quinlos was silent for a long moment. He looked older now, tired. Finally he spoke. Then we must escalate. Prepare the fleet for military action against the human colonies. Velthor felt his entire body crystallize with shock. High Arbiter, the Council has not engaged in warfare for over 1,000 years. Are you certain this is the right decision? The humans have left us no choice, Quinlos said, though even he did not sound completely convinced of his own words. We either demonstrate our power now or we watch our authority crumble piece by piece. Send a message to Captain John Mitchell. Tell him he has 1 week to surrender all human colonies and accept Council authority. If he refuses, we will take the colonies by military force. Velthor left to deliver the ultimatum, but a single thought kept echoing in his mind. What if the humans refused again? What if humanity's response to overwhelming military force was the same as their response to economic pressure? What if humans simply did not know how to surrender? Throughout human space, people received the news of the Council's ultimatum. There was fear, certainly. The Council fleet was large and powerful, but there was also something else in the human response. There was anger. There was determination. Humans had faced extinction before. They had stared into the darkness and refused to blink. This would be no different. On Earth, President Alan Williams prepared to address not just his planet, but all of humanity across the colonies. His message would be broadcast everywhere, and he knew the entire galaxy would be listening. He thought about what to say. How do you tell your people that war is coming? How do you prepare them for the possibility of defeat? But as he looked at the speech his writers had prepared, he realized they had it wrong. Humans did not need to be prepared for defeat. They needed to be reminded of who they were. So he threw away the prepared speech and spoke from his heart instead. Captain John Mitchell read the Council's ultimatum on his datapad. His face showed no emotion as he finished reading, then handed the device to Commander Lisa Hayes. Around them on the bridge of the Relentless, the crew waited in tense silence. Everyone knew this moment was coming. 1 week. Lisa said quietly after reading the message. They want complete surrender of all human colonies. They want us to accept integration into the Council under punishment terms. We would have no freedom at all. And if we refuse, John asked, though he already knew the answer. Then they attack. They have assembled a fleet of 80 warships. It is everything they have in this sector of space. Lieutenant Ben Carter spoke up from the communication station. Sir, we are also receiving messages from Earth. The Council sent the same ultimatum to our homeworld. President Williams has issued a public statement. Let us hear it, John ordered. Ben activated the recording. President Alan Williams appeared on the screen standing in the Oval Office. He looked serious, but his eyes were filled with determination. My fellow humans, both on Earth and across all our colonies, the Galactic Council has demanded our surrender. They believe they can force us to accept their terms through the threat of violence. They are wrong. Humanity did not crawl out of caves, survive ice ages, plagues, and countless wars just to kneel before the first bully we met in space. If the Council wants Earth, they will have to take it by force. And they will learn what every would-be conqueror in our history has learned. Humans do not know how to quit. We do not know how to surrender. We only know how to fight. The recording ended. John felt a grim sense of pride settle over him. There is your answer, crew. We hold the line. We make them pay for every inch they take. But Lisa pulled him aside after the announcement, her voice low so others could not hear. John, we are outnumbered 16-1. Their technology is better than ours in almost every way except speed. Even if we fight perfectly, we will probably lose this war. Maybe, John admitted, but we will make them bleed for every inch they gain. And while they are busy fighting us, Earth will have time to prepare better defenses. That is all we can do, Lisa. Buy time and make them pay a price they did not expect. Across human space, similar conversations were happening on every colony and every ship. Colony governors were evacuating civilians to underground bunkers. Defense stations were being armed with every weapon available. Every ship that could mount a gun was being converted for combat, even civilian vessels. At the Mars Military Academy, Admiral Helen Price was addressing the largest graduating class in human history. These young officers were being rushed through their training because war was coming and humanity needed every trained person it could. You are being commissioned early, she told, the young men and women standing before her in crisp uniforms. War is coming and we need you now. Some of you will not survive what lies ahead. That is the truth, and I will not lie to you about it. But understand this clearly. We are not fighting because we want to fight. We are fighting because someone decided we are not allowed to be free. That is a lesson humanity has taught many times throughout our history, and we will teach it again now. The young officers stood straighter, their faces showing both fear and determination. They knew what was coming, but they were ready to face it. At the Galactic Council headquarters, High Arbiter Quinlos was having serious doubts about his decision. The human response to his ultimatum had been broadcast across every communication frequency in known space. It was being heard by species throughout Council territory. The response was not what he expected. Instead of fear and pleading, the humans had responded with defiance. They were preparing for total war. Every colony was being fortified. Every ship was being armed. They were not positioning themselves for a negotiated surrender. They were preparing to fight to the last person standing. Ambassador Velthor appeared in the Arbiter's chambers, his crystalline form reflecting the dim light. The fleet is ready, High Arbiter, but I must ask one more time. Are you certain this is wise? If we attack and the humans resist as fiercely as their history suggests they will, the casualties on both sides will be enormous. We could lose thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. We have committed ourselves to this path, Quinlos said wearily. He looked and sounded tired. If we back down now after making threats, the Council's authority is finished forever. Other species will see that defiance works, that threats are empty, and our entire structure will collapse within months. But what if we attack and struggle to defeat them? Velthor asked. Will that not also damage our authority? What if we win, but at such a high cost that we look weak anyway? Quinlos had no good answer to that question. He simply stared at the reports in silence. In the command center on New Boston Colony, Engineer Paul Dixon was putting the finishing touches on humanity's secret weapon. The quantum drives were ready and working perfectly, but the engineering teams had developed something else too, something the Council would not expect because it went against every principle of so-called civilized warfare. Kate Morrison reviewed the specifications for the new weapon with a mixture of amazement and horror. Paul, this weapon! If we use it, there is no going back. The Council will never negotiate with us peacefully. They will see us as monsters. They are already planning to invade our colonies and kill our people, Paul pointed out. They are not negotiating now. They are threatening us with destruction. And you know the first rule of human warfare. If someone starts a fight with you, you finish that fight with everything you have. The weapon was simple in design but absolutely brutal in effect. Human engineers had taken their quantum drive technology and turned it into a weapon. The resulting missiles could jump across vast distances of space in just seconds, making them nearly impossible to intercept or defend against. Combined with powerful human-designed warheads, these missiles would turn the Council's numerical advantage into a fatal weakness. The bigger their fleet, the more targets humanity could destroy. How many missiles do we have ready? Kate asked. Enough, Paul said grimly. We have enough to make them deeply regret that they ever found us. As the deadline approached, both sides prepared for war. The Council fleet moved into attack formation around human colonies, their ships bristling with weapons. Human ships, outnumbered but defiant, positioned themselves to make the Council pay dearly for every world they tried to take. Across the galaxy, thousands of alien species watched and waited. They wanted to see what would happen when the unstoppable force of the Galactic Council met the immovable object of human resistance. When the Council met humanity in battle, something would have to break. The only question was what would break first. Would it be human resistance or would it be the Council's confidence? The answer would come soon enough, written in fire and blood across the stars. The first shots of the war were fired at the human colony of New Boston. In less than 1 hour, those shots completely shattered 3,000 years of Galactic Council military thinking and doctrine. Council Fleet Commander Thalrix had positioned his 80 warships in a standard siege formation around the colony. He expected some token resistance from the humans before they inevitably surrendered. What he got instead was a brutal demonstration of why humanity had survived as the top predator on one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. The human defense fleet around New Boston consisted of only 5 ships. By all military logic, they should have formed a defensive line around their colony and tried to protect it. That is what every other species would have done. But humans did not fight like anyone else. Instead of defending, the 5 human ships went straight for Thalrix's command vessel at speeds that should not have been possible. They moved so fast that most of his ships could not even track them properly on sensors. "Quantum drives," Commander Lisa Hayes said calmly aboard the Relentless, as they streaked past 30 Council ships in seconds. "We cannot match their shields or their weapons in direct combat, so we do not try. We match their speed and make them chase us instead. We fight on our terms, not theirs." Captain John Mitchell watched as Council ships struggled to track and target the rapidly moving human vessels. Their turrets swiveled wildly but could not lock on. Lisa, execute Phase 2 of the plan. What happened next would be studied in military schools for centuries to come. The human ships suddenly launched missiles, but they did not fire at the Council fleet directly. Instead, the missiles shot outward away from the battle, heading into empty space. Thalrix watched in confusion. Had the humans panicked and missed their targets completely? Then the missiles vanished. They made quantum jumps and disappeared from all sensors. For a moment, there was only silence and confusion on the Council command ship. Then the missiles reappeared, but they did not reappear where they had been. They reappeared behind the Council fleet, inside their formation, among their tightly packed warships. The resulting explosions tore through 16 Council vessels in a matter of seconds. These ships had been designed to attack planets, not to defend against attacks coming from within their own formation. All their shields and defenses faced outward. The missiles hit them from behind and inside, where they were most vulnerable. The survivors scattered in panic. The perfect siege formation collapsed into complete chaos as ships tried desperately to avoid more attacks. "Sir," Ben Carter shouted from communications, "New Boston colony reports successful evacuation of all civilians." "The colony is now completely empty," John nodded. "Then we are done here. All ships make quantum jumps to rally point Beta. Time to go." The 5 human ships vanished instantly, leaving Thalrix staring at the burning wreckage of a quarter of his fleet. He had lost 16 ships. The humans had lost nothing. And the colony they came to capture was now worthless and empty. News of the battle reached the Galactic Council within hours. The panic that had been building for months now became complete terror. Ambassador Velthor presented the battle analysis to another emergency session. They did not try to win the battle. They did not try to defend their colony. They tried to hurt us as much as possible while evacuating their civilians. Now the colony is empty, and we lost 16 ships taking a worthless rock with no one on it. Then we moved to the next colony immediately, High Arbiter Quinloss insisted, though his voice lacked confidence. "They cannot evacuate every world forever, can they not?" Councillor Zephyra flickered with extreme agitation. "Look at what they did. Those missiles came from inside our formation. Our shields were all facing outward because we thought threats come from outside. The humans attacked us from a direction we did not think was possible. They are thinking like prey animals," Velthor said slowly, working through the logic. "No, that is wrong. They are thinking like predators who are willing to look like prey first, just to get into striking distance. Every battle doctrine we have assumes our opponent wants to defend something valuable. Humans do not care about that. They abandon their colonies without hesitation and turn each battle into an ambush. Over the next 2 weeks, 4 more human colonies were evacuated in exactly the same way. Each time, human ships appeared when the Council fleet arrived. Each time, the humans savaged the Council fleet with surprise attacks and then vanished. Each time, the Council captured an empty, worthless colony. Council casualties were rising rapidly, while humans had lost only 3 ships in all the fighting. The military situation was becoming a disaster, but the political situation was even worse and truly terrified the Council leadership. Across Council space, member species were in open rebellion. The failure to quickly defeat humanity had exposed weaknesses that the Council had hidden for centuries. Species that had been told resistance was impossible and futile were now watching humans make the mighty Council bleed. 17 species had formally withdrawn from Council authority. 23 more had stopped paying their required tribute. The economic system that had kept the Council powerful for thousands of years was collapsing rapidly. On Earth, Admiral Helen Price coordinated humanity's defense from deep underground bunkers. She knew the truth. Humanity could not win a long war of attrition. But they did not need to win. They just needed to survive long enough for the Council to break apart politically. Latest intelligence reports from our spies in Council space, she told President Alan Williams during their daily secure briefing. The Council is fracturing internally. Some species are calling loudly for peace negotiations with us. Others want total war to make an example of us. The Council leadership is paralyzed by disagreement. They cannot decide what to do. How long can we keep this strategy working? The President asked. Another month at most, maybe 2 if we are lucky. We are running out of colonies to evacuate, and eventually they will figure out how to counter our tactics. They will adapt. Then we better hope the Council breaks politically before we run out of options militarily. Back at New Boston, engineer Paul Dixon was preparing humanity's final surprise move. Teams of engineers were constructing something that had never been attempted before. It was a quantum missile capable of jumping directly to Council headquarters itself, across thousands of light years of space. Kate Morrison confronted Paul in the engineering workshop. Paul, if we strike their capital world, there is no coming back from that. This stops being a defensive war and becomes something much darker. Some might call it terrorism. The warhead is not nuclear, Paul said quietly. It is an electromagnetic pulse weapon, the strongest EMP we have ever built. It will knock out every electrical system in their headquarters complex for months. No casualties, no deaths, but it will send them a very clear message. We can reach them anywhere. Nowhere is safe. That is still an attack on their civilian government center. They attacked our colonies first, Paul reminded her, and unlike them, we are giving them a chance to avoid it. We are giving them a chance to surrender and end this. The message was prepared and broadcast on every frequency that humanity could access. It was simple and direct. To the Galactic Council, you have 3 days to withdraw all military forces from human space and formally recognize our sovereignty. If you refuse, we will demonstrate that your headquarters is not beyond our reach. You wanted to teach us that resistance is futile. Instead, you have learned that humanity is patient, creative, and very stubborn. Choose peace or choose to see what happens when you truly threaten our survival. The choice is yours. You have 3 days. In the Council chambers, High Arbiter Quinlos read the human message and felt the weight of 3,000 years of Council authority crumbling around him. For the first time in his very long life, he truly understood what fear meant. The humans were not just refusing to lose. They were threatening to win. The quantum missile appeared in orbit above Council headquarters exactly 3 days after the human ultimatum, precisely when they said it would arrive. It made no threatening moves. It did not arm its weapons. It simply waited in space like a sword hanging over the Council's most important world, demonstrating that nowhere in the galaxy was truly safe anymore. High Arbiter Quinlos stared at the tactical display showing the missile's position. It was just one missile, one single warhead, but it had been positioned with such perfect precision that it had bypassed every defensive system the Council possessed. Every shield, every sensor net, every patrol ship. It had jumped directly into orbit as if all their defenses did not exist at all. They jumped it straight to our home world, Ambassador Velthor said, stating what everyone already knew. It appeared inside our innermost defensive perimeter, just like they did to our military fleets. They can reach anywhere they want, whenever they want. Can we shoot it down? Quinlos asked, though he already suspected the answer. Certainly we can shoot it down. Velthor replied. But the moment we try, they will know. And they have made it very clear what happens then. If we fire on the missile, it detonates immediately. If we try to approach it to disarm it, it detonates immediately. The only way to remove it peacefully is to accept their terms and withdraw from human space. Counselor Zephyra materialized in the emergency session chamber, her energy form flickering rapidly. The council membership is in complete chaos. 40 species are now openly demanding that we accept human terms and end this war. Another 30 are threatening to withdraw from the council entirely if we continue fighting. We are finished if we keep fighting, but we are also finished if we surrender. What can we possibly do? We find a third option, Quinlos said with a determination born from complete desperation. We negotiate. We talk to them as equals, not as subjects. It is the only path left to us now. On Earth, President Alan Williams received the Council's formal request for peace negotiations. He read it carefully with a neutral expression. Admiral Price, what is your military assessment of the situation? They are completely beaten, Helen said with absolute confidence. The missile over their headquarters was a brilliant strategic move. It is not really about the physical damage one missile could do. It is about the statement it makes to everyone watching. If we can put one missile there, we can put 100. We can put 1,000. They have to assume we have more weapons ready, whether we actually do or not. They cannot take that risk. Do we actually have more missiles ready? The president asked. Helen smiled slightly. I will never tell you that, sir. And I will certainly never tell them. It is better for everyone if they keep wondering and worrying. The peace negotiations took place aboard a neutral space station in unclaimed territory, far from both human and council space. Captain John Mitchell represented humanity, with Commander Lisa Hayes at his side. The council sent Ambassador Velthor, and in a surprising move, High Arbiter Quinlos himself came personally. We are prepared to withdraw all our military forces from human space, Quinlos opened the discussion. But we need certain assurances from you. The Council's authority across the entire galaxy depends on maintaining some degree of order and structure. Your order, John said flatly. The kind of order where everyone follows your rules and pays tribute to you whether they want to or not. There must be rules and structure, Velthor interjected. Without some organization, there will only be chaos and conflict throughout the galaxy. We are not against having rules, Lisa said carefully. We are against you forcing your rules on us without our consent or input. That is not civilization or organization. That is tyranny dressed up with nice words and diplomatic language. The negotiations continued for 3 full days. Slowly, carefully, a framework began to emerge from the discussions. Human space would be officially recognized as independent and sovereign. In exchange, humanity would agree to follow certain basic universal rules. No aggressive expansion into other species' territory. No piracy or raiding. No unrestricted weapons testing that could endanger others. These were rules humanity could accept because they were reasonable and fair. But the truly crucial discussion came on the 3rd day, when Quinlos finally asked the question that had been hovering over everything. What happens to the Council now? 47 species have already left our organization, or are planning to leave soon. Your rebellion has completely shattered the unity we maintained for 3,000 years. What comes next? John leaned back in his chair and thought carefully before speaking. Maybe that unity was actually the problem. Maybe it is time for something new and different. You mean chaos, Quinlos said bitterly. Without central authority, there will be wars between species. There will be conflicts and suffering. Maybe there will be some conflict, John acknowledged honestly. Or maybe there will be real freedom for the first time. Maybe species will form their own alliances and partnerships based on mutual interest and respect, instead of forced compliance. Maybe the galaxy will be messier and less organized, but also more alive and creative. You do not understand what you have destroyed. We understand exactly what we destroyed, Lisa said firmly. We destroyed a system where might made right, where one group of species got to make all the rules for everyone else. If the Council had approached us as equals, as potential partners, we would have happily joined and cooperated. But you came to us as conquerors demanding submission, and humanity has a very long history of dealing with conquerors. We always resist them. The final agreement was surprisingly simple when written down. Human space was formally recognized as sovereign and independent. The Council withdrew all military forces immediately. In return, humanity agreed to follow basic interstellar laws regarding navigation safety. communication protocols, and non-aggression principles. But the real revolution was hidden in the smaller details of the agreement. The document included provisions for any other species to seek similar independence if they wished. The Council would transform from a coercive empire into a voluntary association. Species could join or leave freely based on their own choice. Rules would be negotiated and agreed upon, not imposed by force. In essence, humanity had forced the galaxy's oldest and most powerful empire to become a democracy. 6 months after the peace agreement was signed, Captain John Mitchell stood on the observation deck of the Relentless, watching Earth slowly rotate below his ship. Commander Lisa Hayes joined him at the window. "Intelligence reports from former Council space," she said, reading from her datapad. "Or what used to be Council space. 73 species have declared full independence. Another 100 are currently renegotiating their membership terms to be more favorable. The old Council as it existed is completely gone now." "Do you think we did the right thing?" John asked quietly. "We changed the entire political structure of the galaxy." "That is a heavy responsibility." "We did what was necessary," Lisa replied. "They did not give us any real choice in the matter. We could submit or we could resist. We chose to resist." "Yes," John agreed, still watching Earth turn. "They really did not give us a choice at all." Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation through space. It was home to a species that had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts, terrible plagues and devastating wars. A species that had carried their stubborn refusal to submit from the caves all the way to the stars themselves. On the former Council headquarters world, now renamed the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador Velthor watched the chaos of the new political order with mixed and complicated feelings. Species were forming new alliances and breaking old ones. They argued and negotiated and traded and occasionally threatened each other. It was messy. It was unpredictable. It was nothing like the orderly, controlled universe the Council had carefully maintained for thousands of years. But as Velthor watched the activity, he noticed something interesting. Trade between species was actually increasing, not decreasing. Innovation and new technology development was accelerating rather than slowing down. Species that had been stagnant and unchanged for centuries were suddenly pursuing new ideas, new ambitions, new dreams. Without the Council's heavy controlling hand, the galaxy was becoming more competitive and sometimes more dangerous, but it was also becoming more creative, more dynamic, more alive. "Perhaps the humans were right about something important," Velthor said quietly to himself. "Perhaps our order and control was just another word for stagnation. Perhaps freedom, even messy freedom, is better than comfortable slavery." High Arbiter Quinlos, now simply Councillor Quinlos in the new Democratic Assembly, approached him. "Having second thoughts about what happened, Ambassador?" "Just making observations," Velthor replied. "The humans forced us to change everything. They broke our system completely. And yet we are all still here. We survived. More importantly, the galaxy is still functioning. Perhaps our authority and control were not as necessary as we always believed they were. Or perhaps humanity simply got lucky," Quinlos said. "Only time will tell the full truth of what they started." "Time always does tell the truth eventually," Velthor agreed. Far from the political centers of power, on the rebuilt human colony of